I'd actually never heard of called Maladaptive Daydreaming. And I actually like wrote down a little bit about it like here in my notebook. So I might use those notes as I talk a little bit about it. But in case you've not heard about maladaptive daydreaming, apparently it's a term that is used in necessarily an actual psychological term. It's definitely not like a diagnostic term, it sounds like. I've heard some people talking about it, and it doesn't sound like a diagnostic term, definitely. But it sounds like a term that is used in the mental health community by different people. And what it is like everybody daydreams. We all know that everybody daydreams. That's normal. But what makes it maladaptive or makes it negative is if the daydreaming takes place to an extent that it really interrupts your regular life. It impacts your life negatively. It interferes with the daily functioning of your life. And also, if you do it to such an extent that it takes up such a large amount of your time and energy, if you do it for hours at a time, or if you spend most of your day daydreaming rather than actually accomplishing anything or doing anything constructive, that's when it becomes an issue. And I think that if maladaptive daydreaming is actually a thing, I think I've probably had it most of my life. Um, all my life, I've often been kind of made fun of and teased for being a space case or being in a world of my own, or just not being here in this reality with everybody else. And it has been pretty extreme to some extent. I remember in middle school, it was to the extent that I was so lost in a story that I was reading, which this happens to, like, when I read, I get so wrapped up in the world that the book takes place in. I'm pretty much like kind of just drawn into that imaginary world to the point that I was reading the book and I didn't notice that the final school bell had rang. I didn't notice that all the other kids had gotten up and left for the day. I didn't notice that the teacher had left. Um, by the time that I finally looked up and realized that everybody else was gone, I was the only one there. I had already missed the bus. So I ended up having to go to the office and like try to find someone that would let me call home. So it was a mess. And that's pretty extreme when you get that caught up in your own imagination because you're in this story that you totally lose touch with reality. And it also makes me think about when I used to work at this one place that would let us listen to music or books on tape while we did our work. And for hours, I would listen all day to either books on tape or music, and I would daydream the entire day. What I did work wise was pretty much data entry, so I didn't have to just daydreamed the whole day. And by the end of the day, when it was time to go, I remember so many times taking off my headphones and it being like jarring, that feeling of re-entering the real world, and that just a feeling of looking around and almost like this feeling of unreality, like this feeling of, oh, this place, I remember this place, I forgot this place was here. It's kind of like that feeling, and it's definitely super weird. If you've never experienced that kind of feeling, it's very, very odd when you're that caught up in like your kind of own thoughts and like dream world that you just tend to block out everything in the real world. And I also think about a couple of car accidents that I've been in, that at least a little bit of them I think were caused by this inability of mine to not daydream when I really should be paying attention. And that's why I don't drive a lot. That, at least that's part of why I don't drive a lot, because it is so difficult for me to have that kind of attention, to pay that kind of attention, the kind of attention that you need to give driving to be safe. It is so hard for me to maintain that kind of attention on the road and be safe. So that's a big part of why I don't drive a lot, because I I feel it's kind of dangerous, honestly. It's almost kind of scary. And I don't want to, get hurt or hurt anyone else or get lost or anything like that. But I do tend to kind of just, my brain will just go somewhere else entirely. And if I'm not careful, I will end up totally lost. Or, as has happened a couple of times, I may be off in my own brain and I may end up in a small accident or something. And it's not a good thing. It's really not a good thing. And I don't know if this may be sort of like an ADHD thing. I've always kind of figured that maybe it was, because I know my sister is diagnosed with ADHD. So I always kind of figured maybe that was why it was so hard for me to pay attention when I'm driving. But it's definitely been a problem for me. And that's why I only drive for short distances, to maintain that kind of focus for the amount of time that I actually need to maintain it. And another thing that I do is, I don't actually like write fan fiction much, but when I'm obsessed with a story or a mythological realm, or even just a band, like when I was obsessed with Nirvana for a while, I will make these elaborate like fan fiction worlds and um stories in my head where all the characters are doing all these kind of things. And I don't write them down because I'm probably just kind of lazy. But yeah, so when I really like characters or something like that, I'll definitely do like the whole fan fiction thing in my head and just have all of it playing out. Or if I want to do something with someone, but I'm too shy to ask them to do it or something, I'll just fantasize about what, I think it would be like to go do whatever, with whoever. And I'll even have conversations, like entire conversations with people that maybe I'm too shy to have in person, or um, even have arguments, like fights with people, entire fights in my brain that, I'm too shy and reserved to actually have with people in person. And so I do feel like at least half of my life, if not more, takes place in my head rather than actually in real life. And I wonder sometimes if that's why I have trouble sometimes when I wake up, because I have vivid dreams at night too, really vivid dreams, and sometimes I have lucid dreams. And there are times that I have a really hard time remembering when I wake up if something happened in real life or if it happened in a dream. And I wonder if the reason I have a hard time differentiating is because even during my waking hours, I live in my dream fantasy worlds as much as I live in the actual real world. So I don't know. I thought that the maladaptive daydreaming was an interesting subject, and I thought that I'd kind of share it and see if any of you think that, this is something that you may do. And like I said, as far as I know, this is not like a diagnostic thing. It's not an actual mental condition. It's more of just a way of describing, I guess, what might be a symptom, or a way of coping, I guess you would call it. And the way I was thinking about it, I was thinking that if maladaptive daydreaming is a thing, that, I mean, it's probably maybe a way of self-soothing, a way to calm your anxieties, or maybe it's a way to get the social interaction that you crave and desire, but you're too shy or too socially anxious to actually get in real life. Because like I said, sometimes if I'm too shy to ask somebody to do something, I'll in my head like fantasize, us doing fun things together that we never actually do because I'm too shy to ask. Or, if in the past, I mean, I'm married now and I've been married for a long time, but in the past, when I liked someone romantic fantasy relationship with them that never existed, and but to me it felt real. I mean, it felt real even though it obviously was not real because it was just all a fantasy. So I do wonder if it's not a way of creating social interaction for those of us who are too shy or too socially anxious to actually go out and have that social interaction in person. So I don't know. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope that you find the subject interesting. If so, please give it a thumbs up and comment anything that you want to say, and I'll talk to you later. If you guys have any subjects for like videos you want to hear me talk about in the future or live streams or whatever, just let me know and I'll talk to you later. So, bye.